Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse, and tonight we are having a panel discussion and review. The panel tonight is looking at ABC's 1985 album, How to Be a Zillionaire. So stay tuned.
My name is Martin Fry. F-R-Y. Who needs the moon when we got the star?
Hi, this is Mark White of ABC. Well, we collect labels. I mean, we've had, techno pop, new romantic, white funk, blue-eyed soul. We've had the whole bunch leveled at us. What we were interested in doing was mixing the influences that we lived with while we were growing up. The discos I used to go to, you'd hear the pop greats, Brian Ferry, David Bowie, Mark Bolan, and you'd hear them alongside the great Motown records and those incredible records by Chic. So what we were trying to do was really mix those two things together.
Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse, and I want to welcome Todd Evans and Davy Gallagher here tonight. Tonight, we are looking at ABC's 1985 album, How to Be a Zillionaire. How to Be a Zillionaire was the third studio album by English band ABC. It was originally released in October 1985. It was originally released on Neutron, Mercury, and Vertigo. The album peaked at number 28 on the UK album chart and at number 30 on the Billboard 200. This album, which is crazy if you really think about it, had 4 singles: How to Be a Millionaire, Be Near Me, Vanity Kills, and Ocean Blue. This is the group's first and only album to feature founding members Martin Fry and Mark White, flanked by 2 new members, Eden and David Yaratu. I knew I would butcher that. Those 2 people were just credited as merely performers. So Robert Christgau had a review of this. He said the look of Mark I, ABC fooled Anglophobes into dismissing the music as fashion-plated pandering, even though it was as politically suggestive as Anglophile heroes get. So don't let the look of the Mark II ABC fool you into hoping the music is outrageous or even campy. Sure, Be Near Me is catchier than anything on Beauty Stab, but when Martin Fry is on his game with the hooks that make all ABC sell boy, that doesn't make sense.
Christigo said all this?
Yeah, it's like he wrote like a book.
I love Robert Christgau, but I always have to read his reviews 2 or 3 times to go.
I know.
Do you like that or not? Sometimes it'll be an A+, and it'll sound like criticism for the whole thing.
But he said, but when Martin Fry is on his game, the hooks that make ABC sell coexist with glossy electro-funk and dense wordplay that make or made them sparkle. As a great romantic, he's just trying for a comeback. Yeah, he's like wrote a book. He gave this record a B-. All Music gave it 4.5 stars. Rolling Stone gave it 2 stars. I don't know if that was the record. Oh, that was a Record Guide. Record Guide hates everything. Village Voice gave it a B-. Smash Hits gave it an 8 out of 10. Like I said, for the most part, this record got great reviews, as all with most ABC. So I guess, I don't know who I was going to say. I guess we can just go clockwise. Todd, you want to start us off tonight? What's your thoughts on ABC? And also, as you give your synopsis, if you can give us a ranking at the end from 1 to 10. So we'll do an average at the end. So if you could do that, that would be swell.
Great. Well, I've got the US CD right here with the extra tracks on it. Mm-hmm. And then today I picked up this, which of course I used to have back in the day, but now I have it again.
Yeah, when I bought it originally, I think I remember this distinctly because I was really into ABC then. And in 85, they were playing Be Near Me all the time. You really couldn't escape it. It was big. I think it was bigger than what came before, really. It might have been bigger than the first album. But I originally had it like on CD, and I remember riding in the car listening to it. It's just, I don't know. I'll never forget it because Be Near Me was just so infectious.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Yeah.
back to you.
Well, full disclosure, I really like this album. It's funny, I picked up this record today, and the guy that works in the record store is a friend of mine. He's a little bit older than me, in his early 60s. And the first thing he said when it started playing was, wow, it sure has a lot of dated sounds on it. And I guess it does, but that's never been, I guess because I heard it in 1985, that's never been anything that I've taken away from it. But I think that it's interesting in that it starts out with Fear of the World, which is a little bit different for them, but at the same time, it brings in the tuned percussion that was on the debut that wasn't on Beauty Stab. And Be Near Me does that, and just about I think there's 4 or 5 or maybe even 6 songs that have the orchestra bells and all of that stuff. And so I was thrilled because that was something that I really loved about Lexicon. Be Near Me has a neat little trick. It's got David Palmer, who had moved on from being in ABC, but they brought him back to play the hi-hat. So it's very interesting in that Be Near Me sort of sounds like there's real drums. So it kind of really kind of feels like it could have been a Lexicon song. I'm trying not to go like song by song.
No, you're all right. Just
song, but
in general, whatever.
Vanity Kills, I really like. I like the in the US, a 45 came out that was a different mix that had real drums on it, and I like that better. But I like Vanity Kills. I like the lyrical content of Vanity Kills. I think it's really, really fun. Ocean Blue is one of my favorite ABC songs of all time. I think that it's gorgeously orchestrated, and again has a lot of the classy elements of Let's Kind of Love. But the real star on this album, I think, is 15 Story Halo.
Really?
I think 15 Story Halo is absolutely amazing, and it has this change about, I can't remember what, I think it's 2 minutes before the end. It sort of switches gears into this almost prog rock kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And I just think with all this, the layered vocals and harmonies and all of this stuff, and I just think 15 Story Halo is amazing.
Well, there's a lot of Fairlight on it. I'll give you that. A lot.
There is for sure. So I think you have a really strong side 1, and then side 2 is strong also, but in a different way. And it starts out with A to Z, which is, I think, truly bizarre. At the time that it came out, it was really funny because I was at college and I had roommates that liked Pink Floyd and stuff like that, and so they were not big ABC fans. But my roommate thought that A to Z was just the greatest thing ever. And I don't know why. I don't know whether it's because of the slightly shocking thing that Eden says in it, but whatever it was, it won him over. So I don't really know. I guess it's kind of like when I was in the early 80s when I worked in a record store, we couldn't keep Violent Femmes on the shelf because they had bad suggestive language in it. And I think that's probably why people go, I don't know. That ABC album's okay, but that A to Z song is really great. But anybody who hasn't heard it, A to Z is a song where they introduce themselves, and so it's very clever and it's fun but unexpected. When I first heard the album, I was really surprised when that came out. And How to Be a Millionaire, I heard How to Be a Millionaire first. And before the album came out, because there was a UK 12-inch of it, and the mix of it was very different. In the part of, if anybody's familiar with How to Be a Millionaire as it appears on this album, there's a part in the there's like I guess it's a bridge in the middle of it where the guy starts going pounds, dollars, corruption, mm-hmm. And he's just talking. On the original mix of that, it's either a synth or a guitar through a guitar synthesizer just doing this crazy like just super loud solo. and then it ends with the guitar going, and that's on this version too, but it's tamer on this version, and on the UK 12-inch, it was almost subversive. I mean, it was just super loud and in your face. But I think "How to Be a Millionaire" is a great song. Tower of London and So Hip It Hurts. I like those two songs. I think I like So Hip It Hurts a little better. And Between You and Me, it's kind of funny. It actually sounds a lot to me like it sounds kind of like SOS. It sounds kind of like, the kind of last track on the side songs that they had done on Beauty Stab. And I didn't notice it at the time, but when I listened to it in the last couple of days, I was like, oh, that sounds kind of like SOS. But I think that this is a really good album. And I think what ABC was doing, and I could be wrong about this, was that I feel like after Beauty Stab, they were trying to ABC by the numbers, put themselves back together again into more of a thing that people expected. And I think they did it. They tried to do it themselves, which I think that the reason that there's a lot of Fairlight in it. But I think they did a pretty good job. And then the one we'll talk about next time even goes further in trying to put the pieces together to make a lexicon too. I mean, the front of Alphabet City is even blue, like Lexicon of Love is. But I think How to Be a Zillionaire is a strong album. I feel like I should say something about Martin Fry's cancer diagnosis. I think it happened after he was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma, and he underwent treatment for it. And I think it happened after they determined that the tour wasn't going to work, because I think their intention was to figure out a way to put to make Eden and David Yeritu and the two of them into a band. And I think if I remember correctly, it's hard to find information on this, but if I remember correctly, it didn't work. If either of you guys uncovered anything about that, but that's what I remember hearing back at the time, was that the idea was that Eden and David Yeritu, like Eden would be like a stand-up percussionist, kind of like Sheila E., and David Yeritu would be the bass player. And neither one of them could really live up to, I guess, what they promised in the interview.
They're almost like actors, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't
fell apart, and then I think his cancer diagnosis came right around the same time or just shortly after. So
I'm going to ask about that, Todd, before it slips my mind. How shocking was that at the time? Because obviously, now we've got a generation of artists who you don't expect to die, obviously, but we're used to it now that a lot of our heroes are in their 70s and
right.
80s and stuff. How shocking was it at the time that a young, fit guy who was current pop star like Martin Fry was diagnosed with cancer?
It was devastating to me, because this is before we lost Freddie Mercury, and before we lost Kurt Cobain. So to me, I was shocked, and I loved Martin Fry. So I heard that and I thought, oh, he's going to die. And then he made it to, I don't know how old he is now. Was he 68, 69, something like that?
He's never had a recurrence, thank goodness.
So I'm glad it turned out the way it did. But I think that there were a lot of things about what they planned to do with this record that sort of turned out not how they planned.
He was born in 58.
Okay. All right. So he's not quite that old.
But
64 then? That's not bad.
Yeah.
I didn't even hear that story back in the day. I wasn't aware that he had that.
Yeah, it was pre-internet, so it was in like magazines. It was in like Hit Parader, I think. I don't remember where I read it, but it was something like that. And,
but you heard, Todd, I can't remember from the Beauty Stab episode, but had you heard Beauty Stab back in the day when it came out? Yeah. And then, see, I did not.
Okay.
How did you take, when you first heard Zillionaire, with that, how they advanced to that type of, I guess you would call it dance music to some degree. It seems very commercial. After coming off of Beauty Stab,
I was okay with it, and it was funny. I was okay with Beauty Stab too, but I was good with it because I liked electronic music and I liked drum machines and I liked Fairlight. So I was just like, okay, well, if Martin and Mark are going to try to do ABC by themselves, that makes sense because that's something that they, and like I said, the way they orchestrated this thing, it's really not bad. It's really not it's not a far off imitation of what Lexicon is. And song wise, I think it's really strong. So I think I give it an 8.5. I think I give it an 8.5.
8.5. All right, cool.
I'm pretty sure that's lower than what I gave Beauty Stab, but I don't remember.
You gave that a 10, I think.
Yeah. But
I think we all gave Beauty Stab a 10, correct? Davey, I can't remember what you gave it.
Sure I gave it a 10.
Yeah. I gave it
I think it's
really
a wonderful record.
Yeah. But that's not to say that I don't like this, because I really do. And this is just outstanding art direction. Just
I love the typeface and stuff, and people can go on about just like the music. Oh, it sounds so dated, so the colors look so dated. It was 1985. It's the middle of the 1980s. What you wanted to look like.
That's right. That's the way things were when it came out. I didn't think twice about it.
I would love in the current day to pick up an album and look at the back of it and have it look like that. And there's all this stuff in here. It says Diplomats Target Practice. I've seen the future. I can't afford it. Billionaire, Zillionaire. It's all this political stuff on the back.
Yeah.
Which is very cool. It's on the front too.
Yeah, that's cool.
I forgot that the vinyl copy cover artwork had all the colors on it.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
It's been a while since I've seen one.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't get that.
I don't know. What, Davey, what, like in the UK and over there, what did it come with? Did it have the colorful cover or did it have, it did.
Exactly.
I don't get it why they would, maybe, I don't know. Was it 2 color? It might be cheaper to.
I'd imagine it's cheaper to do one color of
because that'd be if it's just black and hold that up again. Hold
This
the CD up. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, is it white? Is it white
it's
and
white
blue?
and yellow and blue.
Oh well, it's 3 colors. So
it's not bad. It still
blew
has
that theory.
Font. The CD I think looks kind of cheesy, but they all kind of did back then. But
looks like a made in West Germany CD.
It is.
Oh, good for you.
Made in West Germany by Polygram.
Nice. Original pressing. God darn, I knew I liked you, Todd. All right. Well, 8.5. That's a good review. Let's pop it over to Davy Gallagher and see what he has to say.
Okay. So interesting one for me, this, because they are regressing in as Todd said, they're looking for some sounds that are a bit lexicon-y. But they're progressing in that they're using modern techniques to get there. So although the ultimate goal may be a bit regressive, the way they're getting there, the destination is entirely different from the way they did it in the first album. So we get things like the 12-inch single have become massive by this point, where the remixes and things on the 12-inch single, especially in the UK, 12-inch singles would often outsell albums at this point. Especially certain bands had a reputation for good remixes. And then an album that I think came out about a year earlier that has a massive influence on the sound of this one is Frankie Goes to Hollywood's Welcome to the Pleasure Dome.
Yeah.
I think it's got a huge influence on this. And as mentioned, the guys produced this themselves. So they don't have a Trevor Horn sitting in the corner to do it for them, but I think they do a remarkably good job of doing it themselves despite that. So I'll run through the tracks. I mean, Fear of the World gives you that massive drum machine synth opener to let you know, we're not quite in Kansas anymore. It's a bit different to what we had on Beauty Stab and Lexicon. Again, it seems like it was almost designed to be coming soon in a 12-inch remix, and buy this and you get 5 different versions of the same track. And then, what did they call them when they started bringing them out the CD? Maxi discs and things like that as well. Then you had those 3-inch CD versions and things.
Yeah,
bizarre little things. So some of the lyrics on this are I love Martin's lyrics because sometimes they're just the right side of clunky to notice, it can so easily fall into, but no real bruises I can show, traveling the world on the radio, no real scars I can display, burning up tomorrow into yesterday. I think that's really, really good couplet, actually. I really like that. Be Near Me is it's fantastic, isn't it?
Fantastic.
The classic Martin crooner track with the more contemporary approach, and the Fairlight adds a quality sound to affairs. Lyrically, it's a lot of platitudes, but it all sounds so sincere. When you've got a singer that can sell platitudes, why not use them? Gorgeous melody. It's just a lovely ballad all round. Should have been a massive hit everywhere. Vanity Kills, or as I remember it, the bum 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 bum. Just what is that? What are the bum bums? Bum bum bum. So it is very 1985, but hey, it was 1985. I think you can forgive that when that was literally the year. I like the top vocals at the start. It's very like gossipy voices coming into the club. Have you seen who just walked in? All that kind of stuff. I think that's pretty cool. Vanity kills, but it don't kill bills. That maybe does fall into the clunky bit from Martin. But relatively speaking, it strips down the production a little bit. And it's not as lush as you'd expect. It's more soft cell or Human League at this point, where there's a wall of sound in a way, but through very limited instrumentation. But I do love the trumpet parts as well. I thought that was a cool addition to get real trumpet in and not try and synth that up. Ocean Blue, probably my favorite track on the album. I love the bass opening. It's just sumptuous.
Oh, yeah.
It sounds in the best possible way like it came out of a John Hughes movie. It sounds like that kind of thing where you'd have your protagonist, at home lying in bed worried that he's lost his girl or something, and then this song would come on. I love the instrumental passages where the Fairlight picks up the tempo. Martin's voice is on fire, and the backing vocals here are from P.P. Arnold from way back in the 60s, and it's great to hear her doing some stuff. I love P.P. Arnold. She had the massive hit here with First Cut is the Deepest, and it was her that put The Nice together and pretty much launched Keith Emerson's career. But Blue to be blue, ocean blue. That's just a fantastically easy, catchy chorus. And it's great to hear Martin Fry and P.P. Arnold singing together. That's just wow. Blows my mind to get those two. 15-story Halo. That whole 10, 20, 30, 40, 15-story Halo.
I love it.
Every
word of that song I love.
It sounds like, which is quite an obvious attempt to have something very, very, very current. It's got synths, it's got samples, it's got scratching. It's very much, and it's funny that Todd mentioned Sheila E. because I think it does have a very Prince feel to it, and the. Not right through it, but I think it's definitely going for that kind of Prince vibe with the. There is even one of those Prince. There's one of them in the background, but it's definitely going for that kind of wall of sound that Prince was starting to use. Definitely live shows around this stage. It's a bit Computer Blue from
Purple Rain.
Purple Rain. Martin once again plays about with his vocal styles. Terrific last couple of minutes. That coda, that last 2 minutes that Todd mentioned, that instrumental breakdown is just fantastic. I could have listened to that as a 5-minute instrumental on its own, to be honest. That would have been great. A to Z, I love. I think that's insane. First of all, the synth guitar part that opens it is straight from Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
I was trying to think about that. You were 100% right. Oh my God.
First of all, makes me laugh anyway. But then when you get the, hi, my name is Martin Fry, F-R-Y. Who reads the moon? We got the stars. It's like, oh, what is this? This is mental. And then we get the
It's mental.
Can we use the? Can we even use the word?
I was going to say, I think we could probably say what she
He
says.
says it. So yeah, I mean, so it comes on to the hi. I'm Eden, and I want you to kiss my snatch. And then you get a big mwah noise.
It's
And
pretty
that's-
risque for 1985.
and it's not even Eden singing. That's Martin, and they just sped it up to make it.
Oh,
sound
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Martin sings that.
Oh
And
my God.
Eden was apparently
We should
really
have slowed that down.
which
Could she not do anything?
yeah, I don't think so. But I think that's interesting too, because what did Prince do a couple of years after this on Sign of the Times? He creates Vanity. No. What's it? Camille?
Apollonia.
No, Camille, where he starts using
Oh,
the high,
Camille. Okay.
the high
Yeah.
female voice.
Right.
And he starts singing in a female voice that he said was like a different character. Originally, it was supposed to be a whole independent album. But here we have Martin Fry doing a female voice 2 years before Prince did that, which is, so that's quite interesting too. But it's got nuts beats, crazy upbeat rhymes, and it's massively dumb or hilarious, whichever way you want. I'm on the side of hilarious. It's only 2.5 minutes long, so who cares?
Right.
And I also love the ridiculousness of introducing yourself halfway through the album, not at the start.
Well, that's the beginning of side 2.
But it's still the beginning of side 2.
Mhm.
All of a sudden it's bizarre. It's so bizarre to me. And then you get the whole the Mark White. That's right, Mark White. That's right. But again, I love it. I wouldn't change it for the world. I think it brings a lot of fun to it.
Mhm.
The title track, or nearly, which is Millionaire instead of Zillionaire. Like the last album, it's a bit more socially conscious than we'd probably expect from ABC. Very anti-yuppie culture, which is it's kind of annoying because Martin, I think simply because of his nice suits, is somewhat associated with yuppie culture when he never was. Working class guy from Sheffield. Sample heavy, really cool retro bass, some terrific synth sounds from the best you could get from Roland or Korg, 1985. Really cheesy samples of the pounds, dollars, millionaires, millionaires. It very much had that. 19 by what's his name, Paul
Hardcastle. Yeah.
Yeah, no, 19.
Oh, God.
19.
I haven't heard that forever. Oh,
That
my
was
God.
number one the day I was born.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So this is the first ABC album that came out in my lifetime as well. Just to make you feel old.
Yeah, well,
Oh, wow.
thank God I just greased up my walker. So there you go.
But there's some nice moody sections on it as well. But you get the impression on How to Be a Millionaire, the text maybe just a little bit too new for everybody to read. If they'd done it a year or two later, they may have had more mastery over it. It's maybe just a little bit too soon. Tower of London, wow. I mean, the Scooby-Doo ba 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 ba. Who thought we'd get scat singing? Here we go.
Why not?
Why not, indeed? As a chronicler of London, I don't think you're going to mix up Martin with Ray Davies or David Albarn anytime soon, but it's still a really cool track. What is done cannot be undone. Not here, not in London. It doesn't quite rhyme, but if you pronounce it London, then it does. So. The music on it is very reminiscent of Bananarama's Cool Cool Summer.
Oh, yeah.
Very reminiscent. But in a good way, because that's one of their best hits for my money. Very great pop song. And I love the instrumental breakdown with the backing vocalist then matching the scat singing. So everybody's doing the Scooby-Doo-ba-ba-bum. Shoo-ba-doo-boo-boo-boo. Brilliant. But it's just these first 3 albums, I've never understood why they're so synonymous with one sound when these first 3 albums alone,
They're all different. Yeah.
3 totally different bands practically.
Mhm.
So Hip It Hurts. I remember, and this is the song I probably know best because it was in the movie Tough Guys with Burt Lancaster and Kirk Douglas. The one where they're a couple of bank robbers who do one last job when they get out of jail in their old age. It's kind of funny that a song that's making fun of being so hip that it hurts, fads and trends, is on an album where ABC are kind of playing about with the idea of fads and trends and sometimes falling into fads and trends. But I like that too. I like that they're kind of self-aware in that regards. There's no illusion of pretension there. Backing vocals that pass comment on the lead singer always get me. So the backing vocals are actually responding to Martin and passing comment on him, which I like. And some really nice guitar moments that sound a bit more Beauty Stab. It's a bit more reminiscent of that. So it's nice to jump back there for a few moments. And Between You and Me, really nice song to go out on. The piano intro, just for a few seconds, it almost seems to say the next album is where Smokey sings, because it's just got that kind of. And I was like, oh, here we go, Smokey. Oh, wait, that's the next album. Mm-hmm. But some terrific bass lines, and it's almost the ABC version of gospel on the choruses, with the hand claps, which are done through the synth, but with it's not between the devil and the deep blue sea, not between truth and hypocrisy, not between freedom and democracy. It's between you. Between you and me, it's really cool stuff. I think Martin's just a massively underrated, versatile singer. He's a great crooner, but I think he's also got a great sense of humor, and a really versatile voice where he can turn his voice to a lot of different things and inject a little bit of self-conscious humor into things that kind of deflate what in other bands could be very cloying and quite pretentious and portentous in a lot of cases. Martin's always got that kind of, if not a massive amount of wit, then at least he's always got a wink for the audience, as if to say, hey, I know this isn't the best rhyme I've got, but come on, dance. I just think it's a really solid record. Overall, is it as good as either one of the last two? No, I'll agree with Todd there, but I still think it's a really damn good record. Really damn good record. And I would recommend any of these first three records, frankly, to anybody. So I'll go with Todd's 8.5. I think that's a really fair score. And again, it's under, doesn't even touch the 40 minutes. So it's not as if you're investing a lot in this. If you want to give it a go, it's like 38 minutes 40 or something like that. So to me, it's a fantastic way to spend that with some really versatile sounds. Again, the spectre of something like Frankie does hang over it, because it does take a lot. You can tell they are going, oh, we could try something like, but I think they do it really well, and they've got the talent to pull that off. So it never comes across as just derivative. So for a band kind of looking for, because it'd been 2 years since Beauty Stab at this point. Mm-hmm. For a band, and as we know, music used to change so much every few weeks, never mind every few years. Probably looking for where do we fit in. I think this is a really solid attempt to try and find their place. And then, unfortunately, things changed again for them, because almost as soon as this comes out, what happens? Live Aid and coming out with suits and whatnot starts to look like a bit of an idiot when everybody else is trying to look like they've come off a poverty row, and because they've given all their money to charity, clearly.
ABC never played Live Aid, did they?
No, not that I know of anyway.
No, but Spandau Ballet did, and that's a really good point. They did. I love that look, man. I could do 100 shows on Spandau Ballet, but when they came out at Live Aid, they looked out of place.
Yeah, because everybody was like, it's probably a bit of a silly look to have. First of all, it was a roasting hot day in London. If it was the Wembley show, I'd imagine it was the same in Philly about that time of year. Mm-hmm. But to walk out on stage and talk about how we need to raise money for Africa, most people just went with jeans and t-shirts. I mean, Status Quo opened it up. You don't get more.
They are wearing jeans, probably. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I don't think you can get them out their jeans. I think Rick Parfitt was buried in his, but Yeah.
Yeah, but all of those bands that had that look, that expensive suit look, were not expensive suit people, and they weren't from expensive suit neighborhoods. So
no, and that's what I'm saying about Martin, where I think he's tied into something that he doesn't actually represent. But these songs where he's kind of siding with the working class, and on the last album we saw he rallies against the House of Lords and the monarchy and things, and on here he's talking about the hypocrisy of London and yuppie culture and things. Those aren't the songs that anybody's ever going to think of when they think of ABC,
right?
Which is, hopefully we're doing a little bit, much as we can, to remedy that and say, hey, they're more than just as great as those songs were. They're more than just Lexicon and Smokey Sings.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, Davey, that is freaking awesome. First of all, I want to thank everybody who's tuned in and have left comments. I love it. I appreciate it. We haven't really acknowledged anybody yet because we've been on such a rant. Well, we haven't been on a rant, but you know what I mean. So we've got an 8.5 and an 8.5. Davey, I do have a question for you. Since you were born in 85, correct?
Yep.
Okay. How do you view this record? I mean, you gave it a good review, but when you listen to the things from the 80s, because I'm looking at this record, this is probably a perfect example of 80s production. Overblown to the extreme. But when you listen to this, you don't in your mind, do you like it the way it is? I mean, me personally, I can't think of this record sounding any different than it does here. It's perfect the way it is.
And for a few reasons. Number one is context. I think context has to be king in all these things. It always amuses me when people say it sounds dated, and I know their favorite music is produced by George Martin or Martin Birch, or
one of the Martins,
and it's from 15 years earlier than this. And I think, well, that's not dated. Just because your genre hasn't moved on in 50 years, don't hold it against anybody else's. But to me, everything in its right place. So if I'm comparing an album from the 1950s, I take it in the context of the 1950s. If I'm reviewing an album from 2022, like I'm doing for our best ofs at the moment, then I compare it to the context of 2022. And to me, you need to take into account that late 70s, you start to get synthesizers coming into the scene. Kraftwerk kind of introduced them, and then they make their way over to the UK. Very few bands can afford them. Very few still know how to use them well. And it does take a few years for everything to kind of settle down. And then you start to get the band with the lone synth player in the background, usually with blonde hair down one side, just hitting one key over and over again, and that seems to be his only job. And drum machines and things. So you do have to accept that some things are just going to date worse to your ears, and you're always going to say, "Oh, I wish this was a real drummer," But you can't change things. I wouldn't change them for the sake of making them modern, because that's just going to make it dated again in 20 years hence. So you need to accept things for where they come from and for what it is rather than what it isn't.
Well, and I think too, if I could jump on for a sec, I think that what happens a lot when people refer to music as being dated, everything that is just guitar-based drums gets a pass.
Yes.
But anything that has any later technology tends to be like, oh, well, and people are, if they'll either say, oh, I hate that, or they'll say, oh, well, it was okay for a time. But then after that, everything gets, everything became pure again. And I think that's ridiculous. And I may get into a little bit of trouble here.
No, I think you're fine.
I think that's ridiculous. I used to, back in the day when people used to complain about too many synthesizers and all that, the thing I used to say is guitar-based drums, like it was some kind of like caveman kind of thing, and it wasn't pure rock and roll if it added anything else.
Yeah.
horns or anything like that. I mean, there were people in the 60s that didn't like Blood, Sweat, and Tears in Chicago because they didn't think horns belonged in rock and roll. And so when you get here and you get to, and especially, I mean, not only keyboards, but when you get into Fairlight and sampling and all that stuff, I don't think it's any less pure. It's just people using the technology.
Yeah.
Well, I remember when all this came out, when, you know, the Yes album came out, you know, Owner of a Lonely Heart, and we heard that intro. I thought it was like something coming out of the future.
Right.
Like, what is going on? And this record too, I remember driving around listening to it, and I just thought, this is great. But, you know, as time goes, we kind of look at things differently.
And there is always, sorry, Graham.
No, go ahead. I do have a question for you before I go on, because this is fascinating. Go ahead.
There is always the risk that when you make something intentionally to be contemporary, that it is going to date. But yesterday, 2 days ago now, because we've turned midnight here, Metallica released a new song. And my feed was full of, oh my goodness, this sounds like the 80s again. So it's, as Todd says, it's okay for some genres, apparently.
Yeah, and Metallica tried to have a different sound, and they got beat up for it.
Yeah.
So, you know, I like the new song too, but
I haven't heard it yet.
I think there has to be an acceptance that, yes, this was a very new technology, whereas guitar, drum, bass music was always just an evolution. I mean, even if you go back to the very early Moog stuff, you start to hear, I mean, that sounds so primitive when you start to hear the very early stuff with, sorry, I can't think of her name, Wendy. She used to be a man. She did the soundtrack.
Wendy Carlos.
Yes, Wendy Carlos did the soundtrack for Clockwork Orange and things. When you hear her early classical albums, and she's doing Beethoven and stuff on a Moog, it does sound primitive to our ears in 2022. But again, it was like music from the future in 1965 or whatever. So, you know, everything in its place, just like as you said, Yes. I mean, Yes, that 90 Beverly Hills 90210 album.
90215.
That sounds more dated, if you will, than their masterpieces from 10 years earlier, because it sounded more contemporary at the time, ironically. So, you know, you run that risk, but at the same time, if you're trying to appeal to the pop charts, then you are trying to appeal to people that are buying now, not your legacy. You're not thinking of the greatest hits in 10 years, 20 years, are you? You're thinking of what can we do to get most sales, most concert tickets sold on the radio right now. And I really don't see what ABC did wrong around this era, or any of these kind of bands, to use technology. Yeah, some of them didn't use it as well as others, but that's to be expected. Some guitar players aren't as good as others.
Yeah, and there are probably kids who like a lot of music that other kids make in their bedrooms and release on YouTube, and they probably hear some of that stuff like early Yes and think that sounds dated.
Yeah,
because in their world it would. So it just depends on your perspective and where.
Yeah, I was just kind of curious because, you know, Davy being born in '85. I mean, I was just curious how he looked at it. Yeah, so was I.
You know, it doesn't, but nothing sounds dated if you take it in context. You know,
well, there's some things that do, like, well, let's look at the Cheap Trick, The Doctor. I listen to that, and it is 80s just like this, but it's poorly done.
Yeah,
right.
This album is not poorly done.
This has so much enthusiasm, and they didn't shy away from it at all, and they weren't timid about it at all. They were just like in your face. I
couldn't imagine these songs being treated differently.
Yeah.
I think the production lends itself to the songs. Where The Doctor, I can hear, I know there's a Cheap Trick song in here somewhere under all this shit. I know there's one in here somewhere. I think there's a good album in The Doctor somewhere if we could strip it back and bring Tom Worman back in. I always bring Tom Worman in.
Everything comes back to Tom Worman and Cheap Trick.
It does.
But I hear what you're saying, and the thing about this is that this is ABC, and when they
Yes.
made the album before this that was more stripped down and more rock and roll, that was ABC too.
It was ABC
And Life's
too.
Kind of Love was also ABC.
Yeah.
ABC encompasses a wide range. And with every album, you don't know what to expect. They're like chameleons, changing with every album. But this album is so well done. And I would not change anything. I don't really have much more to add than what you already have. But the thing with Fear the World that I would say when it starts out, I thought it was like the power station. But then, did you hear that too? I went, shit, this is the power station.
I was in my head I was going, some might get hot and some sweat when they.
But as soon as Martin comes in, it is ABC.
Yeah.
And and when you first hear that opening track, you're going, oh yeah.
And there's another
there it is.
Robert Palmer, Where's the Suit?
Yeah.
But working class guy.
Mm-hmm.
Great song, great singer. But was ahead of the technology at the time, and it worked for him, probably because of those music videos more than anything, let's be honest. But it worked for him, whereas for ABC, it just didn't seem to catch on. I mean, one of these was a top 10 single in America, wasn't it? But the album, as you said, 28 and 30 respectively. It's going to take until Smokey sings for them to have anything regarding a hit again. So.
Well, the problem is How to Be a Zillionaire doesn't need a remix, Stephen. I know you're joking, but Standing on the Edge needs a remix. So don't get me all worked up. I will get worked up. Be Near Me, I think, is brilliant. I think, in fact, I want to mention that I think I haven't really listened to the album in years. I think all I've ever had was the CD, but that original made in West Germany CD, the first pressing, it sounds absolutely wonderful. You would think with all this technology that it'd be kind of cold. I think it sounds great. I wouldn't touch anything with this CD. I think you'd be fine. If you pick up the original CD, you're just fine.
That's an interesting point.
No, well, they did do like, what year, Davy, was that? They put out the deluxe edition of all of them, like in 2003.
Something like that.
But you cannot find them. You
can't
can't
20th
find them.
anniversary, so yeah, about then, yeah. So
I couldn't find one.
They only came out in the UK.
Yeah.
They never had a domestic release. But what else can I say real quick? Oh, Ocean Blue. I think side one of this record is absolutely perfect. I think it's perfect. I do want to add that the fretless bass on here, which is Brad Lang, his playing on this album is incredible.
Yeah, there's some lovely
the
bass.
Bass is so predominant and takes such a center role. The guy's brilliant stuff, and he's always playing fretless. It's unbelievable. But I wanted to mention the Ocean Blue. The single version was remixed by Julian Mendelssohn, but the drum track has David Palmer on it.
Yeah, it does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's great.
Quite a common thing in this era where the single version would be reasonably, if not completely different sometimes.
Yeah, Vanity Kills is the same way.
Yeah.
It's got regular acoustic rock drums on it.
Yeah.
You know, the other thing before I forget the thought is the CD version of this that came out originally. This had to be one of the first CDs released, like in 1985 with bonus tracks.
Yeah.
Todd, how many bonus tracks are on there since you have that?
There are 4, and they are remixes of Fear of the World, Be Near Me, How to Be a Millionaire, and Vanity Kills.
I don't remember anything prior to this CD with
Fear of
any
the World
bonus
is
tracks.
Julian Mendelssohn, and the other 3 are Martin Webster.
And all those tracks are great.
Yeah, and I do think that it was one of the first ones that was like that. Where
You don't think of bonus tracks until the reissues of the 90s and things, and then the 2-disc deluxes, and now we're on to 25-disc super extreme deluxe.
Yeah, I remember getting this when it came out. I'm going, why are all these extra tracks on here? That's weird. But I love it, you know. The only other thing I want to mention is A to Z. And of course it opens up side 2. I don't know. How do you feel? I don't know, as far as sequencing goes, I guess it works better than in the CD world, I guess. Just seems like an odd track to open up side 2. But I just want to throw this out to you guys. Do you consider this track filler? Is it more experimental? When I hear it, this is what I hear. Art of Noise, Herbie Hancock Rocket, and Somebody's Watching Me by Rockwell. And Ghostbusters. Well, no, that's right, Ghostbusters.
Yeah, Ghostbusters.
I mean, is this filler, or is it just them experimenting with the technology? How do you really do this?
It's interesting that you said Art of Noise when I'd already compared it to one of Trevor Horn's most famous productions. But to me, what it says, if I had to sum it up in one word, is fun. They're letting some air into the room for some rather serious things, so that they're just letting a little bit of fun go on, and that was another part of certainly the era was having these bizarre little moments in tracks. Not always the whole track, but I mean, this is certainly an example of, let's just throw on something just to kind of throw people for a loop. This is not what they're going to expect from ABC. And then that line, I don't know how that line made it past the record company. I do not know.
Unless they didn't know what it meant.
Yeah. I mean, my goodness. I think it's still quite shocking, actually, because it's ABC. If it was another band who you'd expect that kind of thing from, then it wouldn't be shocking. But and also to know it's Martin doing it is also kind of...
Well, Martin's on the edge. I know that for the next show, I'm going to slow that down and we can play that with Martin's voice.
I think A to Z was...
That'll make you cringe.
You should do it in the Phil Crooner voice. Would you like to kiss my snatch?
I got to hear what it's going to sound like. I'm going to do that.
I think they put it where they put it on purpose. I think it's an intermission.
Okay. That makes sense.
I think it's also, I wouldn't mess with the sequencing on tracks 1 through 5.
I think it's perfect.
I think if you put it first, it wouldn't have the same impact. So I think it's an intermission. I think it's like a snack break.
Also, and I think it's a bit too silly to be the opening track. Okay. I wouldn't have this as your Sgt. Pepper's, with the introduction of the band. I don't think musically it works that way. I think people would tune out. Whereas if you put it halfway through, you get the introduction. But it's a bit like a concert, isn't it? The band usually gets introduced, halfway through. Or
never at the beginning, right?
Yeah, so why not?
Yeah. The only other thing I really want to mention, I think the rest of side 2 is fine. I don't have any So Hip It Hurts kind of funky white soul. I thought when I heard that, I know we only had 4 singles released off this record, but I thought that So Hip It Hurts could have been like a single on the dance charts. I don't know. I could see that as a single. But How to Be a Millionaire, I want to mention that was one of the standout tracks. But either it was Mercury or whoever threw money into this. Todd, we were talking about the album cover, how the artwork just kind of pops.
Yeah.
And you would love to see something like that now. Think about this. They did an animated music video for Millionaire. Shows Martin Fry and Mark White being overwhelmed by luxury goods and stuff.
Right. Yeah, looking like the art.
They threw money into this record in the promotion. I don't know if that had a lot to do with the success. It probably did. I mean, they pumped it. And you know what's another thing? I know I go on a tangent. I get all excited.
No, this is good
but
stuff.
After Beauty Stab, which was considered a failure for the most part, they turned right around and pumped money and promotion into this. It's just good for the record company because it worked out. But it's a great record. What can I say? It's a great record. It still stands up. And for a lot of those crappy 80s productions that may make you cringe, this is an 80 production that does not make you do that. I can't imagine this being any other way than it is. I think it's perfect as it is. Do I think it's as strong as what came before? Not quite. But, you can't hit a home run out of the park all the time. But for a perfect example of an 80s production, this Frankie Goes to Hollywood, Pleasure Dome. What else would I consider a perfect 80s production that doesn't make me want to throw up? Thompson Twins, those Thompson Twins albums are killer.
Tears for Fears.
Tears for Fears, but that still sounds like it could be released today.
I have heard Tom Bailey,
Tears for Fears.
I've heard Tom Bailey say in an interview from Thompson Twins that after he released Into the Gap, that his phone was ringing off the hook, and all of these A-listers were trying to recruit him to produce them.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, whatever that bass, however you're getting that bass sound, I have to have it on my record. Yeah. And he was just like, we just came up with that. I don't even know if I could. I don't know if I could do it for you. But like all these people, Tina Turner and all these A-listers were calling him and saying, I love the way your record sounds. And I don't know, I kind of feel like this kind of has that kind of a sound to it.
It does.
It does. See somebody hearing it and saying, I want that.
And I think as long as there's a heart and soul in it that's based in musicianship, even if that musician is more synth-based now, but still has a musical structure to them, you're always going to find somewhere something to latch onto. It's when it becomes something for the sake of it, like these bands who latched onto a fad or a trend and didn't work for them because it wasn't what they actually wanted to do. That's when it sounds bad. But when you hear a good 80s album, I don't know, I'll pick another band, Level 42, for example.
Good example.
There's Mark King's bass, which is kind of leading the way. And that doesn't sound dated. It sounds 80s, but it doesn't sound dated. So I think people do kind of miss the boat on that, where they, the Beatles don't sound modern, but nobody calls them dated. It's one of those kind of odd things that does tend to happen to synths and to drum machines more than any other piece of instrumentation.
Yep. But here it works. It works really well here. It's where everything lines up. I really wish I could bitch about it, but I can't. Both of these gentlemen gave this record an 8.5. I think that is fair, but I think, Tower of London's all right. I dig the drum machine on it, but I think the songwriting on the first two records, I think, was flawless. I think I don't know. I mean, I can listen to A to Z, but I kind of think it's kind of, I mean, it's fine, but you can look at it as being filler, even though some might. I think I could give this record a solid 8 because there are a couple of tracks that I listen to and I go, it's okay. Maybe it's not quite as memorable. Where Beauty Stab and Alphabet City wait a minute. What did I just say? Alphabet City? We haven't gotten there yet. Poison Arrow, help me. Brain
Lexicon of Love.
Lexicon of Love. We'll get to Alphabet City soon enough. I think those records are definite 10s. Perfect records. So I'll give it an 8. Well, this ought to be easy to tally. So our average would be an 8.3 based on that. And there's nothing wrong with an 8.3.
No.
Nothing wrong with that. Highly recommended. Like if you're looking to get into ABC, I probably would start out with Lexicon and Beauty Stab, but if you find this in the wild, I'd pick it up. That original CD just sounds wonderful.
Yeah, well,
wonderful mastering on it.
Like I was saying, I've got groups of friends and into music of all different ages, and people have this pre-notion of ABC being one thing. But I have friends who I would introduce via Lexicon. I've got friends that I would introduce via Beauty Stab, and I've got a completely separate group who I would introduce via this, depending on their interests. So I really think they are a more diverse band than anybody gives them credit for, than the radio gives them legacy for by playing, other songs. And they deserve it. They really deserve much more appraisal and appreciation for taking chances, and that's why I'm really glad that we're doing this series for them.
So next one's Alphabet City, right?
Yeah.
So we'll probably be doing that. I don't know, that'll probably be January sometime. Things are every 2 months. So anyway,
I wanted to add something to to what one of the things that Davy said, if I can, he was talking about the background vocals, and that was one of the things that puzzled me a little bit back when I first heard this album. Is that I heard the background vocals; they're really soulful, and I thought to myself, I don't think that's Eden.
Yeah, P.P. Arnold.
So there was a lot of that. Was the only thing. I think that's the only negative memory I have of it when it came out. I remember hearing it and thinking, I don't know who those other two people are, but I don't think that's them on the record. And it wasn't. But
yeah, they were very much just there, like the two girls in the Human League who were recruited just because they hung about the gigs.
Yeah, but they're singing on that though.
They do sing on those records, yeah, but well, they don't really sing, do they? They just kind of.
I don't know. They have a good. Well,
they just kind of talk.
I think they're great.
But I also want to say, in closing, that how is this not bigger than it was?
Yeah,
well, this is pretty big, though.
Enormous, considering the timing of it. I've always wondered that. I've always thought it should have been much bigger.
Yeah,
really?
For it not to be top 20 does seem a bit bizarre. And maybe that's just Polydor at the time didn't have the promotional facilities, or they're pushing somebody else at the time. I always want to pull the charts up for that relevant week and see who was beating them and what other companies were putting stuff out, because again, to see the context.
Right.
Well, I wonder what it did really sell in the end. I mean, did it ever go platinum or gold or anything?
No, I think it
never did.
Gold. Sorry, I think it was Beauty. No, we're done with the certifications. Yeah.
I mean, it did better. The album did better in the States than it did in the UK, I think. No, I'm sorry.
No.
It got up to 28 in the UK, but it got up to 30 here in the States.
That's probably.
I mean, that's about the same. That's
pretty much the same, yeah. So the album didn't really do big business, but we're about to see a massive difference on the next one, where the next album goes top 10 in the UK, but doesn't even make the top 40 in America.
Yeah.
And that's weird too, because the single is super popular in the US.
Yeah.
But not the album.
You know what's funny about that?
The single does better in America, oddly.
Consider the 80s, though. They took a lot of time between records. You've got Beauty Stab in 83, Zillionaire in 85, Alphabet City in 87. A lot can change in 2 years,
Yeah, I guess Martin's cancer diagnosis played a big part in that as well.
Yeah.
But,
probably.
Yeah.
But
and actually, it goes 87, 89, 91.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's a lot of time in between,
And
consistent, though.
We're in that random one right in the middle of Britpop, 1997, Skyscraping.
I
remember coming out and I was like, "That's so weird." We had new albums by OMD and ABC within months of each other. It was so weird.
All right, boys. I guess we can wrap this dog up. Like I said, we gave it an average was 8.3. So if you see it, listen to it. I don't know. Listen to it and give us a comment down in the comments. And please like, subscribe. And like I said, I do have a Facebook. I do have a Twitter that I just got running that Todd checks out. But I don't know. I don't really have anything more to add. Does anybody else have anything to add before we wrap this up?
No, I think we've given it a good.
There you go. All right.
Going over.
Again, I want to thank everybody for coming on and watching and commenting. It's been a lot of fun. This has been a great conversation, and there'll be more to come. So look January for Alphabet City.
Yeah, thanks for giving us an opportunity to talk about it.
Absolutely.
Of course. All right, gentlemen.
For a really long time.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thanks.